Hello, I hope this stays on. It kept closing again, but I think this is all right now. I'm reading today chapter 5 out of Life in Spirit. It's a book written by Harry Edwards, and it was published in 1976. And I read a little bit, I read every time a little bit of how he starts in this sleeve note. This is the story of John and Mary. Any John, any Mary, brother and sister, husband and wife, sweethearts, friends. The story of you and me, but with this difference. John and Mary have died and emerged into their new life in spirit. Harry Edwards was a well-known spiritual healer, and he ran a healing sanctuary, which I believe is still working now. I'm not sure. This book was published in 1976 in Guildford, in Surrey. Chapter 5. Mary's House. John was impressed with the appearance of the countryside as he travelled to Mary's home, and compared it with his recollections of rural conditions in earthly life. There were verdant pastures of living green, with groups of fully developed trees, richly endowed with abundant foliage. There were the birds too, but what impressed John most was that there were no roads or pathways where they walked, no fences or hedges. There were no divisions separating one part from another. There were houses too which looked strange to his eyes, as if they belonged to another world, as indeed they were. Each one differed from the rest in character, shape, height, and colour, as if it had a personality of its own, occupying its own personal location, as if it was made for it, expressing a plan in which colour and design were part of the surrounding garden, ablaze with colour and dignified by slender trees of beauty. Here and there were clusters of houses as if they belonged to each other, yet each apart and independent of its neighbour, but retaining a sense of companionship. John thought they must belong to a family who traditionally loved to be close to each other. How different, John thought, to the rows of dull, uniform terrace houses he had previously lived in. So he began to look forward eagerly to seeing his beloved Mary's house, which she said she had prepared for him. Mary pointed out her home some distance away before they reached it. It seemed to overlook the terrain and was built on a piece of ground a little higher than the rest. It did not appear to be large, rather on the small side, and of a colour which was the counter to that tall, slender cypress tree, to the tall, slender cypress trees, which formed a half-circle background, protecting the gradual upswept lawn and radiant flower beds. As they walked nearer, John became conscious of a feeling that each one of the many blossoms turned towards him, bidding him welcome, and with a soft melody like rising mist of sound. Mary saw that John had become intimately conscious of this welcome, and could hear the melody. She was greatly pleased for this was the fulfillment of her plan for John's homecoming, and the reunion, that they need never again be interrupted. Approaching the house, John saw it was arc-shaped around a patio, where there were resting places and a door leading off from it. John touched the wall and felt its smoothness. No joints could be seen, and it was not cold like glass, but possessed a feeling of extending an invitation to his hand to linger and stay, a homecoming atmosphere into which he became a part. Mary took John through one of the wall spaces. There were no doors as such, nor were there windows either, just an open space showing the vista of the garden slope with its galaxy of plants and blooms, a panorama of happiness and fulfillment. Mary told John that this was his room, and when she saw John begin to understand what this meant to him, there was an adoration in his eyes which gave her that happiness which no words can spell out. Mary could see all the love and thought with which she had planned for this time, all she had desired and worked for throughout their time of separation, to show John how deeply she loved him, and this was her reward. The room was not over large. As John looked more closely to the treasures it held, He knew it would take a long, long time for him to be able to fully feel the joy, the personality, the meaning of each article, how each vase was shaped in which the personality of the substance it was made of was expressed, in the desire to give him the sensation of a melody from the inspiration of the one who had made it, and this, he knew, was his beloved. There were arrays of beautifully bound books in the wall recesses, all so simple, so perfect. A divan went along one wall, while other seats and a simple carved-shaped table were the only other fittings in the room. There was no roof. The room was open to the sky. At first John was puzzled by this, but he was learning fast and soon realized there could be no fog, snow, or rain in a dimension free from such worldly phenomena. John could find no words to describe the material of which the house was built. The nearest earthly substance he could compare it with was alabaster or onyx. There were differences in the shades of color, but so gentle was the subtle blending, it could not be seen where one shade ended and another began. Mary suggested he changed into his new robe. "You will feel still happier," she said. She showed him also into a smaller room, or a recess, where a flowing of tinkling, singing water cascaded into a hollowed-out space. John removed the semblance of his earthly garments, and as he did so they disappeared, and were no more. No earthly words can give an idea of the ecstatic joy and feeling of a new freedom John felt as the cascading flow of sparkling water washed away and cleansed him of any remaining earthly touch. He put on his new robe and some sandals and went out to Mary, feeling incredibly free, uplifted beyond all measurement, and happy beyond compare. For an eon of time Mary and John sat together, drinking in the fullness of their oneness, a unity the like of which had never been, a contentment within the sublimity of being together again. John was the first to break the silence. "Mary," he said, "it was all worth it. How much I missed you when you left me. Life had lost its meaning for me. I cannot even try to tell you about it, but now it has all been worth it." Mary took John's hand. "I know," she said. "I was with you, but you were so sad. You could not be aware of anything else than your sorrow. You could not know how much I longed to help you and hold you up. All that is now past. We are together again, and there is so much to show and tell you about. This is now our new beginning as we look ahead into the future, but as yet we cannot see so very far ahead. At times you will want to be alone, and for this your room will always be waiting for you, as long as you need it. You have your room, I have mine, for you will find there will be times when you will wish to retreat into yourself. It is then you can find inner peace. There will always be this, our home, to come back to, but at first we shall need to go forward, slowly, and learn the way to live rightly, observing the laws by which we all progress. We have rules to follow, for life here enjoys a control which helps us to proceed in an orderly way. Being a newcomer, for I am relatively a newcomer too, we shall find the rules are very simple, more like guide signs than directives. On the positive side, we are intended to progress in wisdom, understanding, a code of values so completely opposite to those we had to follow before we came here. We shall learn that there is a reason and a purpose for everything, which lives and is present in this life. It is this purpose which maintains us and helps us in our progress to reach achievement. For example, Mary explained, if both of us lost all our love and feeling for this home of ours, and neither of us no longer wanted it, and no other person wanted it either, it would have no purpose, and it would dissolve back into the primal element within it. John thought he understood, but not fully, as he sat quietly listening to all that Mary could tell him. She went on, "Soon we will go and see from the beginning, to see how things are made in the same way as I did, the art of the potter, for instance. And you will enjoy seeing how intimately everything, the light, a blade of grass, a flower, a stone, the substance on which we walk and grow flowers in, is beauty of rhythm and color, of sounds, of thought, desire, ambition, and fulfillment. for all are part of each other. There is no dividing line separating any one thing from another. We shall learn together the message that color, motion, and radiation have for us. The more we learn to use our thought to blend in with these purposes, so the more intensely beautiful will life and spirit become. At first, for example, look at the color of that sunflower. Mary pointed out a lovely full bloom of a bright yellow, golden yellow. What you see now is but a pale misty shade of the living brightness which is there for you to see when you are able to blend in your thoughts and your love with the sunflower. Then it will possess a greater living personality to give you an indescribable joy you will never want to lose. By this time, Mary could see that John's mind was becoming overwhelmed with so many new thoughts and ideas. So she said to him, "Let us go into our home and be quiet, with no more talking for a while. And when we are refreshed, we will go and see how things are made." Right, so this was chapter 5 of Life in Spirit by Harry Edwards, and I shall continue reading chapter 6 soon. Bye-bye. Happy Monday.